It's going to break.
We were having a contest to see who would laugh first.
And I knew it was going to me. I knew it was going to be me, so I figured I would just like break it now.
And we are live on Altered Moments. Welcome, everybody. This is my very special guest, Steve Rizzo, and you are seeing two of us. You are not having an altered moment right now.
We have many altered moments, especially today trying to get this thing to work, but we're fine now.
Or so we think.
Yes. We're doing good. Is that it? Is that the end of the show? Can I go home now? What about my news?
Gosh, I've been trying to get him out the door all day.
And it just doesn't seem to be working. Actually, I'm really happy to be on the show, and I'm glad you have me here.
Thank you for being here. And thank you to everybody else who's here and joining us live. Welcome to Altered Moments. I know if you watched this before, you know that an altered moment is that moment when God intervenes, a divine intervention, and our lives are changed and are never the same. And we're having one of those moments now as we both try to speak to you through one computer and one microphone, which is mine, by the way.
Yep.
And we're very excited that you're here. If you are watching us on the replay, we're excited that you're here too. And hopefully you get to see the video of both of us because I think we're pretty funny looking.
I think we're funny. As a matter of fact, that's the thing that helped us. We really tried so many ways to use two different computers to get this thing going. And I said, maybe once we get it going, we should just call ourselves Dumb and Dumber. So she looked at me and she said, "You're dumber." And she was right. But here we are.
Here we are. And here I am with the great Steve Rizzo. And this is an amazing moment. If you don't know Steve Rizzo, I just want to play a really quick video that will tell you a little bit more about Steve. And then he's going to talk about his book, and he's also going to share an altered moment with us.
What made Steve Rizzo the mindset adjuster? Courage. What makes him a best-selling author? Courage. What Hall of Fame speaker, an all-star comedian, and an excellent teacher? Courage. It's obvious that he's done a lot, but what has Steve Rizzo got that I ain't got?
You're thinking they're looking at the Wizard of Oz.
Hey, Steve Rizzo here, sometimes known as the Mindset Adjuster, shifting mindsets across the globe. Allow me to explain. First, I use my comedic skills to captivate the audience with laughter.
Just take it off.
Well, it's a really nice video.
We didn't hear sound, so we figured you weren't hearing it either. So and this is coming from Dumber. I just figured that out. Dude, that's absolutely hysterical. She goes like this. She goes, "We don't have sound." Oh man, that was funny. Anyway, that was a parody of me doing voices and introducing myself and what I do. And then it goes back to more parodies of voices. You're not understanding a word I'm saying, but don't worry about it. I will tell you, if it's okay with you, I'll just tell them a little bit of what I do.
Absolutely.
I am I'm a inspirational speaker. I don't like titles. I don't like motivational speaker. I don't. Most people call me the Mindset Adjuster. I speak to groups throughout the country and parts of the world. And before that, I did 25 years. I was a stand-up comedian, headline comedy clubs, theaters, colleges, and did a lot of TV stuff. And at the pinnacle of my career, I had a calling to do something else and decided to get into the personal development business. And I became a speaker. As I said, most people call me the Mindset Adjuster, though. And that's where I am at this point in my life. And I met Kimberly, actually, at an event was, what, a month and a half ago? Mm-hmm. About a month and a half ago. And I believe our connection was an altered moment. Actually, the way we met in more ways than one, and we got to talking and at the last night, and we kept in touch ever since. And now we're deciding to do a perhaps we're going to do a podcast together. And but trust me, we'll get it right when we do it.
We'll have a producer.
Yeah, we'll have it. Yeah.
So I'm actually told in the comments that they could hear the sound.
Oh, they heard the
So
sound?
should we try it again?
Oh yeah, try it again.
Okay,
Oh, thank you, whoever commented.
Should we go where it left off,
Let's go,
or
let's
should
go.
I
Yeah, that's really
start
funny.
it over? We'll go where it left
You know,
off.
your audience right now saying, they really are Dumb and Dumber.
Why? Because I can.
No, you gotta
He
make-
was so funny, kept the crowd energized. I'd go back.
What made Steve Rizzo the mindset adjuster? Courage. What makes him a best-selling author? Courage. What makes Rizzo a Hall of Fame speaker, an all-star comedian, and an excellent teacher? Courage. It's obvious that he's done a lot, but what has Steve Rizzo got that I ain't got?
Courage.
You can say that again.
Hey, Steve Rizzo here, sometimes known as the Mindset Adjuster, shifting mindsets across the globe. Allow me to explain. First, I use my comedic skills to captivate the audience with laughter. Why? Because I can.
He was so funny, kept the crowd energized. I'd go back and see him again and again. And don't tell him this, but I'd pay a lot of money to see him.
Then once I know I have their attention, I gradually show them step by step how to shift their mindset from failure to success, from unhappiness to fulfillment, and from lack to abundance. Let's watch. Pretty cool, huh? You want to know what else is cool? My new book, Conversations with Bob, and my new presentation, The Bob Factor. If you've had enough struggles, if you feel that your life isn't working or needs to be tweaked on any level, personally or professionally, if you're waking up in the morning in a low mood, you just can't get motivated or feel inspired, have no fear, Bob is here. And my promise to you is this. If you embrace the common sense success strategies that are revealed, you will realize how much power you have over every aspect of your life. But you know what? Enough about me talking about me. Let's hear what some of my Hollywood friends and celebrities are saying about me.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank the members of the families for being here. In particular, Steve Rizzo, a great inspirational speaker, for making a difference in people's lives and for making them an offer they simply cannot refuse.
Hey, I just came back from a Steve Rizzo presentation. Oh, what an incredible experience. I only wish I could remember it. Oh, Steve Rizzo's on the cover of Total Prestige magazine. I just read the interview. No wonder this guy gets respect. Not me. I get no respect at all. I mean, the other day I told my son to take out the garbage. He said, you married her, you take her out.
You know what? I just read Steve Rizzo's new book, Conversations with Bob. Oh, I'm so inspired.
We're back.
Well, that's a perfect segue into your book,
Yeah.
Conversations with Bob. So tell us a little bit about Conversations with Bob and why you wrote it, which I know leads into your altered moment.
Yeah. That's the whole book was started because of the altered moment. As a matter of fact, was when I read your book, Altered. I was thinking that I had that moment. Well, I had a few moments like that in my life, but that one in particular was pretty intense. The book is called, as you know, Conversations with Bob, and I'm going to get right to the point. Bob is God. How he gets the name Bob. I'm not going to tell you. You're going to have to read the book to find out. But it's funny. It's humorous. It's a dialogue between two characters, Bernie and Bob. Bernie resides in the negative zone, where challenges get blown out of proportion and problems turn into emotional havoc. And everyone on this planet, I mean, everyone, no one is exempt, experiences Bernie's negative ways and emotions throughout various stages of their lives. But then we have Bob, good old Bob to the rescue. Bob is of your higher nature, your true self, your higher self. As I said, the God part of you that has the answers to all of your questions and solutions to all of your problems. And throughout the entire book, Bob reveals to Bernie what he calls common sense success strategies and shifting habits that can take Bernie to a better place personally and professionally. And I started to write the book years ago. I think it took me 7 years to write the book, first of all. Every time I thought it was finished, Bob said, no, you're not. There's more you have to experience, and there's a lot more you have to learn. But I started writing it after a divorce, after 34 years of marriage. And I lived on Long Island. And one morning I woke up, and this is exactly the way it happened. I just said to myself, I got to move to California. I had to get away. And California was the furthest place I can go to still be in the country. And I could have went to Hawaii, but that was out of the question. And I rented an apartment for 2 years in Marina Del Rey, a condominium. And I had to face what I was going through with the divorce. The divorce was my decision, which is what made it even more difficult. And I knew by getting away, I would have to face what was going on within me. And one morning, 4:30 in the morning, I was walking on Venice Beach by myself, which is not a very safe thing to do, by the way. And I lost control of myself and where I was and what was happening. Because you have to understand, at that time, I'm an inspirational speaker. I'm supposed to be helping people with their lives, and
Wow. Yeah.
and here I am, I'm falling apart. And I felt like a hypocrite because I was still doing the speaking thing, giving them the tools and the strategies that can help them get to a better place, and I couldn't help myself. So I just started yelling. And then I realized I was yelling at God, and I was cursing and calling God out and saying, why aren't you answering me? And why is this happening? And why this? And I was so upset at God. And I remember just sitting down in the sand, and part of the waves were coming up and hitting me a little bit. And after the outburst, I was exhausted. I stood up and I took a step and I said, what the hell is wrong with me? And what the hell am I doing here? And I took another step and I heard something within me say, you know why you're here and you know what's wrong. You're just too way caught up in your own drama to find the answer. And I went, well, where is this coming from? Then I took another step and I asked another question, and another answer came immediately. And I kept walking, asking a question, and another answer was coming. And I knew I was talking to God. I knew it. But I got very excited about it. It was a very emotional experience. I got into my car. I drove to my place in Marina Del Rey. I took up my laptop, and for hours, I kept typing questions, and answers were coming so fast. I mean, it was unbelievable. And sometimes I would write on a pad and have a pen, and I would write, and I was exhausted. And I went to sleep. I slept maybe 10 to 12 hours. And I woke up and I opened up my laptop and I looked what I wrote on the paper. And I didn't remember writing about 75%, 80% of the stuff that I wrote. And I kept writing for days, not ever realizing I was writing a book. I was just having this conversation with God. Well, why is this? How come my life isn't working? How come I knew this? And how come when I prayed, my prayers weren't being answered? And these answers were coming. And then before you know it, I said, I'm writing a book. This is a book, right? That's what I'm saying to myself. And then my sense of humor kicked in. And then my vulnerability kicked in, and my ability to tell a story kicked in. Then my imagination was taken over, and before you know it, I had this book. And even when how Bob gets his name, I'm not going to tell you how, but how he gets the name Bob was, I didn't even think of that. It was just one question that Bob was asking Bernie, and Bernie was answering back to. They were going back and forth, and the thing took me 7 years to write. And like I said, every time
Wow.
I thought I was finished, Bob would wake me up, usually very close to 2 a.m. in the morning, which kind of ticked me off because I kept saying, "Look, can you do it at normal hours?" But there's something about that time of day. Um, it's very, I guess, spiritual is the best word to use, and you really feel close to the higher part of yourself because everything is quiet. I mean, everything. It's just silence. And I finally knew when the book was finished, and it's published and it's out now.
And you talk a lot about humor because that's your background. Maybe some of our listeners don't know that Steve did stand-up comedy for how many years?
25 years.
And so humor is a big part of your background. And can you talk a little bit about that and how you bring a very serious God, because God is very serious and we bring God into a lot of the serious areas of our lives, but we don't often think about bringing God into humor.
And that's a shame. That's because of some of the labels we have about humor, especially today, because we're so politically correct. But I, excuse me, I honestly believe that humor is one of the top gifts that God ever gave us.
Mm.
And what good is a gift if you don't open it and use it? And people need to understand, and I think the book exemplifies that. As a matter of fact, there's a chapter in the book called "Humor Being to the Rescue," where Bob conveys to Bernie how important it is to have a sense of humor. And Bernie says, "What are you talking about? I have a sense of humor." He goes, "No, Bernie, you used to have a sense of humor, but you got so caught up in the crap of your life that you created, by the way, and your sense of humor dwindled with your enthusiasm and your passion and your belief in me." And basically, that's what the whole book is about: is Bob just telling Bernie how to turn his life around. But I do believe that humor is one of the greatest gifts, and I can recall, as many of you can, on how many things in my life turned around because I took that break. Because humor nips negative thought patterns in the bud before emotional havoc blossoms.
Absolutely.
Um, that's why sometimes when you go to a wake or you go to a funeral, as that video I showed you before, and you see people at the wake services, or after the person is buried or however, people start telling funny stories about the deceased. And they do that because it's healing, because laughter makes you realize there aren't any goodbyes, there's only good memories. And it's that ability to laugh that ignites that higher part of yourself that makes you realize the spirit that constitutes who that person is will stay with you forever if you choose to view it that way. And humor helps you to do that. It just and it gets you out of so many intense situations. Um, I've interviewed many people in emergency uh, uh, units in hospitals, doctors, firemen, policemen, people in war, soldiers, and they all state how crucial. And even if it's warped or sick humor, it helps. It's I call it the great bounce back factor, because that's what it is. It helps you to reestablish and to get your mindset and focus to do what needs to be done on that day. And in that particular chapter, Bob explains to Bernie how important it is. There's nothing that will get you closer to me than when you unleash the power of your humor being.
What advice would you give to somebody who says right now, my situation is so grave, I can't find humor in it?
Um, all right, I have to start with this though. Suffering may be unavoidable. As a matter of fact, suffering is essential. Whatever it is you're going through now, anyone who's listening right now, if you're going through a death of a loved one, an illness, maybe you were stricken with cancer, a family member, a financial ruin, whatever it may be.
I've been there, all of those.
Yeah, yes, you have. And you have an incredible sense of humor too. This woman can make me laugh my butt off. I don't have much of a butt to begin with, but I'm just saying. And so suffering is part of the healing process. The biggest mistake a person could make is to say, I have to be strong for the children. I have to be strong for my family. I have to be strong. No, you have to allow yourself to feel the pain of what's ever bothering you. And in time, though, and it's different for everyone, there's always room for a humor break. And this is how you can establish this and make that conscious choice. And I'm not asking you to be funny in a situation. I'm asking you to see the funny that's around you as you're suffering. For example, if you're going for a walk and say you're going through something right now, and you're just going for a walk and you're seeing two little kids playing and one says something to the other, and you know darn well it was funny, but you won't allow yourself to even smile because you're holding on to the suffering. But I believe you looking at those two children who would have made you laugh otherwise is a sign from God saying, you can smile and you should smile, and I gave you this gift. And all you have to do is maybe just chuckle a little or just smile. But once you do it, am I making sense here?
Absolutely.
But all I'm saying here is become aware that you did that. And this, wow, I just smiled. I felt pain. I simultaneously smiled and even laughed a little bit. You're sending a message to your subconscious that runs 97% of your life. And that message is, I'm going to hold on to that for you. That's where the God part of you comes in. And the next time it happens, maybe you'll allow yourself to laugh even more. And maybe after a week or two or a month, like I said, it's different for everyone. Maybe you'll allow yourself to watch a sitcom or see a funny movie or go to a comedy show or listen to a comedy clip or play with your dog. That's all a part of humor too. It doesn't necessarily mean a heart-wrenching laugh. It means that you allow yourself to appreciate the blessings that were bestowed upon you that you can't see when you're suffering to the point where you're blinded to this other stuff. And everyone has the power to do this. And I'll say something a lot of you might not like. If you say you don't, then you're right. You are now creating your own reality. Your life is based on choices. Every single choice that you make, every choice you make, whether it's made consciously or unconsciously, there is always a consequence. Always. And where you are at this point in your life is based on choices that you made at some point in the past. And I could name you a list of things. You and I could do podcasts together for days and just talk about the power of humor. I have stories from famous people. I knew Christopher Reeve, the actor who passed, so most of you might know, who played the role of Superman in the 80s. And he was paralyzed from the neck down. The only parts of his body he could move were his lips, his eyebrows, and his eyes. That was it. Nothing else. He couldn't move it. He was on a ventilator, a breathing apparatus. And he saw me give a presentation once. I'm going to make a long story short here. He saw me do a presentation once, and it was in front of 6,000 people. I was the opening keynote, and he was the closing keynote. And when I got off the stage, Dana Reeve approached me and gave me this big hug and said, "Chris would love to meet you. Do you have time?" I said, "I would be honored." And I walked in and I saw this guy. And when you see someone in that condition, when you hear about it, it's one thing, but when you see it, it's a totally different vibe. And they turned him around in his wheelchair, and he had to speak a sentence and then take a breath of his respirator and then speak again. He goes, "I love what you said up there, especially the part of your humor being." He said, "If it wasn't for my sense of humor, I don't know if I would have been able to bounce back from this, because it was humor that made me realize that even though I'm not the man that I thought I was going to be, but there is still room for laughter." And one of his biggest quotes in his book, Nothing's Impossible, My life isn't what I thought it would be, but there is love, there is joy, and there is laughter. And he's the one that called laughter the great bounce back factor.
Wow. Wow.
And I have a brother that's 100% disabled, who was 100%. He passed away last Christmas Eve. And he's the only man in medical history that ever survived that wound. 100% disabled. He never complained. His sense of humor was the one thing that helped him to bounce back over and over again. And I will say this, it was sick humor. A week before he passed away, he said he was going to give up. And he said, let me change that. I'm not giving up. I'm surrendering. I want everyone to know I can't do this anymore. Because his body was literally, in the past 5 years, was falling apart at a dramatic pace. He had to go to kidney dialysis. His liver was falling apart. And I spent every day with him. This was, especially the past year, was the last year of the pandemic. And I only lived 7 minutes from him. So we had hospice come in. And his last 4 days, hospice was preparing him to leave. And I walked in like I always did. And this is his sick sense of humor. I sat next to him. I grabbed his hand. We used to hold hands and watch TV. And I said, how you doing today, Mikey? He goes, well, Steve, I'm dying. How are you doing? And I said, well, Mike, apparently I'm doing a hell of a lot better than you are. And he was laughing his butt off. I mean, just laughing. 5, 6 hours later, he passed away. But I have the honor and the blessing of knowing I was the one that initiated the most sacred part of his life that helped him to bounce back all the time. And that was his sense of humor. And that was my another altered moment from God, that the spirit of my brother is going to live on forever. Folks, we all have these moments. We all have.
Absolutely.
It's just that we get so caught up in the crap of life that these things pass us by because you're too caught up in the negativity, self-doubt, overwhelm, fear, anger. I call all of these negative emotions the destroyers of the spirit, because that's what they do. They suck the spirit right out of you, and you're not even aware of what's happening to you. Then you become the victim. And then you start blaming other people. You start the why me syndrome. So, and that's why I totally respect this woman sitting next to me. And there was an instant connection when we met. And we had a wonderful conversation at that last dinner at the Ken and Glenn show. Which was an incredible experience for a lot of people. And with all of the things that she went through, as I come to know her, and we've had phone calls and text messages, and there were times that she would say something in a text that I'd be laughing my ass off, and I'd have to call her on the phone, and I'm laughing. And my point is that after all that she went through, I think she'd be one of the first ones to say humor is one of the most precious parts of my life.
There have been times where I had lost my humor. And one time in particular, Casey, if you're watching from Australia, I'm talking about you. It had been a particularly hard time. We were going through a severe custody battle, my children's dad and I. And I did not know how to laugh anymore. I was crying, and I was beyond worried that I was going to lose custody of my children and be removed from their lives. And to me, that would be worse than dying. And Casey became our au pair. And Casey was very funny. And she would always make a comment that lightened the mood and made me see something funny in something around me. And I've told her this personally, but she gave me back the gift of laughter.
Yep.
And that was, I'm so grateful to her, even now, 20 some years later, because she, in that instance, her gift saved my life.
that was another altered moment.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you, that's a great story though. And you held on to that because
Always.
that's the key, folks. When you allow yourself to laugh in the midst of that stressful thing that you're going through, acknowledge it all the time. You're reinforcing that higher part of yourself with an incredible amount of energy. And I remember the first time I realized how important humor was, and when I was in third grade. I don't think I ever told you this story. Uh, I was in the play Humpty Dumpty. No, I wasn't Alice. Um, I was Humpty. No, I was in the play Alice in Wonderland. I'm sorry. I was in the play Alice in Wonderland, and I was Humpty Dumpty. You know, the egg guy. He sits on the wall.
He was correct.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's what happened. And back in the day, when kids did plays, the auditorium was always packed. I mean, it was a big thing for parents, and parents would bring relatives. And they gave me this awkward, huge egg costume that I could hardly move. I felt like a moron. I felt like an idiot. And I had to sit on this wall. And before the play started, I'm peering out of the curtains and I'm looking, this place is packed. And in the audience, I know is my mom and dad, my two brothers, my cousin, and my aunt and uncle. That's a lot of pressure for a third grader. Play starts, and it's my scene. I'm sitting on the wall. Alice walks out, and my line is, "I'm one who has spoken to a king, I am." And I guess I said it with a little bit too much enthusiasm because I fell off on the back side of the wall. I fell right over the wall, and all the audience heard was, that's all they heard. Dead silence. Now, at that moment, I was so instilled with fear. You have no idea. And I panicked. I had tears in my eyes. I ruined the play. What am I going to do? I don't know oh, my brothers are going to berate me, make fun of me for the rest of my life. How can I face my mother and father? Then a part of me saying, get back on the wall. You can do this. I forgot my lines. I wanted to run off that stage. I swear to you, I wanted to run off that stage, but I was frozen by fear. And as all this crap is going on in my head, the teachers, this happened a lot faster the way I'm explaining to you. And as all this stuff is going through my head, the teacher's running up the steps and I hear her say, "Oh my God, Stephen, are you okay?" I don't know where this came from. I yelled out as loud as I could. And I said, "Yeah, I'm okay, but I hope Alice doesn't mind scrambled eggs." As soon as I said that, the entire audience was laughing. I mean, loud. And I heard the laughter. And then I hear them going, "Humpty, Humpty." I'm not kidding you. I stuck my egghead above the wall. They see it. They gave me a standing ovation.
Aw.
All right. I stand up on the wall and I'm dancing now because I'm figuring, hey, what good are eggs without a little bit of ham? Right. So I'm hamming it up. Teacher's begging me to sit down, but I couldn't. Because of that wonderful gift that God gave us, and that was an altered moment, by the way, my humor being came to the rescue. And because of that gift, I went from a klutz to one of the most humiliating moments in my young life to the star of the show. And I am not kidding when I say star, because when it was over, now you imagine this, folks, I'm a third grader. When it was over, the adults were asking me for my autograph.
Aw.
I know they were doing it to make me feel good.
Yeah.
Right. And I kept getting hugs from the teacher and the director and all these other people. And I often wondered, because I know how negative labels from the past can attack you in the present moment when you're an adult. And I often wondered what would have happened, because I had a lot of fear to deal with besides that incident. That only would have reinforced that I wasn't good enough, or that I'm a klutz, or that I'm whatever that might have led to, what other negative emotion. But because of my ability to laugh, I went from a klutz to a hero.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's that's why I say it's one of the greatest gifts ever. And I don't know, maybe I'm going a little above the line here, but if you read the Bible and you read the conversations between Jesus and the apostles when they're asking him questions, when he's walking along the shore of Galilee, and I can sometimes picture Jesus going, "Oh, how many times do I have to tell you guys?" When he says, "Oh, ye of little faith," or whatever. I think Jesus had a great sense of humor.
He had to.
He had to have. He had to have. Look who he was dealing with.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So listen, I'll tell you something else for those of you who have kids. Because when I found this out, when I figured this out, I wish I would have known that when I was raising my son. Sometimes, maybe you've experienced this, parents are reprimanding their children, and sometimes they're reprimanding them in front of friends and other siblings. And it's very humiliating for a young person. Very humiliating. And sometimes you see the kid going like this, like with this smile on the face. And what does the parent do? You wipe that smirk off your face, or I'll wipe it off for you. Or the kid will have a nervous little laugh. And the parent's thinking it's disrespectful. I'm saying no. That kid is turning to a higher part of themselves for safety, because the person is humiliated, feeling guilty for something he probably doesn't even realize he did in front of other people. So that smile is coming from the higher part of himself, trying to make himself feel better. And most parents look at it as disrespect, making that negative situation worse than what it ever has to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
So remember that when your kids have that smirk, know that they're not being disrespectful, because you could see the smirk. It's like a smile, like they're either going to cry or laugh,
Yeah.
or smile. And that's a gift from God. And that's a gift that's being stifled because of adults don't realize what the hell's going on. And I do that with my grandkids. And I told my son, I said, I wish I would have known this with you. I said, don't ever humiliate him in front of people again. I said, you can't. And I told him why. My son was like, whoa. To this day, he'll say it's one of the greatest tips I've ever given him.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, does anybody have any questions or comments for Steve?
I hope you can read them, because I don't have my glasses on.
That's why I wear my glasses. We've been getting a lot of comments. Thank you so much, Bonnie, for being here, and Bruce. And I know there's several others who have been sending emojis. I just can't see who you are. Thank you so much for being here. If you know somebody who needs to laugh, or who wants to see our little blunder at the beginning and see Steve's video almost 3 times. Oh.
And hear us talking as it's on, because we couldn't hear it and we didn't think you were hearing us. Glad I didn't curse.
Share this out if you know somebody who needs a laugh, or who needs to re-find their humor being. Tell us again really quickly what a humor being is.
Your humor being is of your higher self. It's of your higher nature, the part of you that always brings out the best in you, regardless of your circumstances. What your humor being can give you more than anything else is peace of mind and emotional stability. I will. Can I say this? Is that right? I remembered doing stand-up. When I was doing stand-up, I had one of the strangest, was another altered moment, as a matter of fact. It's another reason why I switched from comedy to doing what I'm doing. And sometimes there would be couple of thousand people in the audience, and I'm on stage and I'm making them laugh their butts off. Just making them laugh their butts off. And I'm going, what a trip this is. And one time it was weird, because it was like 2 of me. I was still in the zone. I was still making people laugh. But another part of me got really intense and said, oh my God, there are people in this audience right now going through some sick stuff. Maybe they're going through a divorce. Maybe they're having financial difficulties. Maybe they or a loved one are afflicted with an illness. And for this hour and a half, their challenges, their problems didn't own them. Why? Because they simply allowed themselves to take time out to laugh. Laughter is the pit stop in the rat race of life, in that it gives you enough emotional fuel and repairs to get back into the race again. But the initiative and the proficiency by which we allow ourselves to laugh comes from what I call your humor being. Everyone has it. So I will say this. The more you use it, the more it becomes a part of who you are. The more it becomes a part of who you are, the more you will realize how grateful you are for all the other stuff in your life that you've been ignoring or smothering because you're too caught up in the negative stuff that's happening to you.
Amen and amen. So well said.
And as far as Scum said, that's all I have to say about that. Can I call you Jenny?
Sure, I might not answer, but
Jenny. Mama always said life's like a box of chocolates.
you never know what you're going to get on this show, right?
That's good. That's a good segue in. Well, it's your show. End it.
Yes. So again, everybody, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to Steve. And remember your humor being this weekend. Look for things that make you laugh. And with that, I'd like to invite you to be here Tuesday. We have another amazing guest Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And with that, that's a wrap. All right. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody.